What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Devy Royale YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be fixing the Washington Commanders. We're going to go through their current depth chart. We're going to talk about free agent signings, cut candidates, NFL free agency, mock draft. We're going to do it all. Stick with us through the intro. We'll catch you on the other side. All right. It's a big offseason for the Washington Commanders. They've got a new head coach. They've got a new offensive coordinator. They have probably a new quarterback coming to town. We're going to talk through all of that. But first, we want to talk about the head coach and the offensive coordinator and what that means for this team. Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury are in, and Ron Rivera is out. And I think that's an important distinction. Dan Quinn, one of the main things that he's going to bring over is this aggressive ball hawk defense that we saw with Dallas. It's liable for some big plays, but it's a turnover-inducing defense. That's going to be a key point for them this offseason and how they build this roster out. On the offensive side of the ball, we've got Cliff Kingsbury, whose last offensive run didn't go well in the NFL. He runs this air raid type offense, but it's not very good. I'm not a big Cliff Kingsbury fan, so I think this is an uninspiring move unless they go all out to get Caleb Williams, and this helps them do that. Maybe that's the case, but overall, it's definitely a new look in Washington. It's a new regime. There's a lot of new stuff coming. Randy, why don't you talk about some cut candidates?
Yeah, biggest one, Logan Thomas. It's a guy we've been talking about for years now for cut candidates. 6.5 million saved if you do it. It's just a lot of empty calories with him. He's basically at this point Zach Ertz adjacent, where they're just catching the ball and falling down. So you need some bigger plays for this kind of offense to get rid of him. Nick Gates, De'Ami Brown, Charles Leno, and Andrew Wiley. That's your starting tackles, a sub receiver, and as of right now, starting center. Tough to cut any of those guys.
Yeah. So, what's their current cap space looking like?
Yeah, so their effective cap space right now is roughly $62.5 million. And if you cut Logan Thomas like we are for this exercise, you get up to $69.135 million. A good chunk of change. You already have your draft picks covered. Good looking forward to a building offseason.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut Logan Thomas. That's our first move here. And then we're going to get into some housekeeping. So part of this exercise, we have to retain some of the guys. One thing I want to mention is we do go a different direction at corner. So I know Kendall Fuller is a big name that you're going to see a lot for Washington, but we do go a different direction when we get to free agency. So Washington fans, if you're watching this, please don't yell at us when this graphic goes up. First one that we want to keep in-house is Cameron Curl, the safety, 4 years, $60 million, $15 million average per year. This is a critical one. Cam Curl is, he had some ups and downs throughout 2023, but we've seen him be a high-level safety, one of the better safeties in the NFC, honestly, at times. And so you want to keep him. We're going to keep him at $15 million per. Curtis Samuel, 2 years, $18 million, average of $9 million. When you look at the wide receiver market over the last couple of years, Juju Smith-Schuster got, $11 million last year, 2 years ago. Last year, actually. Jacoby Myers got something similar. Curtis Samuel is a good wide receiver that's been stuck in a not so good offense. I think we can say the same about Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin at times. Curtis Samuel had some really good moments last year, though. So it's critical to bring him back, give this new signal caller some weapons, especially since we're cutting Logan Thomas. You don't have a safety valve. Curtis Samuel kind of provides that. And then Khaleke Hudson, 2 years, $4 million, just $2 million on average, but he was your second best linebacker behind Jamin Davis last year. So you retain him, you kind of solidify that linebacker room. Doesn't mean you don't continue adding to it, especially at that affordable price, but definitely the top three, I think. And then also just we these are smaller contracts. We wanted to mention them, but Sadiq Charles, Jeremy Reeves, James Smith-Williams, Casey Toohill, Joey Sly is a good one to keep around, Alex Arma, David Mayo, Antonio Gibson, and Efe Obada. So Antonio Gibson's the one where there's a chance that maybe you get out of his price range, but also I think the last regime did a good job of hiding his talents. So you might be able to retain him at a fairly affordable backup running back type price and use him in a way that's more conducive to his talents, something we haven't seen in just a little while. We're about to get into free agency and a mock draft, the critical points of this video. But I do want to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/the Devy Royale. We have combined Devy Dynasty rankings over there. We just dropped, actually, today, we dropped our NFL draft rankings. So I just dropped our database that we work in. So our patrons get access to all that. We have a very active Discord. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of people talking NFL draft all the time. Devy, college fantasy. We had a nice long talk about the new college football game today in there, and a ton more. You get a ton with our Patreon at just $5 a month. Patreon.com/Devy Royale. Feel free to join today. Randy, let's get into free agency. What are we doing here?
Yeah, we're, like I said before, we're using this money to build for the future. All the new regime of the front office, new coaching staff, how they're playing it. You have veteran coaches that are going to be trying to win this year, but they're going to set it up for the future. So starting off big, like you said, we're not doing Kendall Fuller, who's going into his age 30 season. We're going to do L'Jarius Sneed instead. 4 years, $66 million, 16.5 average. A little bit extra money than what Kansas City would probably give him. It sounds like they're trying to retain Chris Jones this year. L'Jarius Sneed said on a show today, pay me. I don't think they can really do both. So I'm going to get Sneed here. Probably what's going to end up being the best corner on the market. So just because I don't think Jalen Johnson will hit the market. And speaking of not hitting the market, I'm not sure any of these top edge rushers will hit the market. So we went with AJ Epinesa, 2 years, 12 million, 6 average. A guy that's really, it's taken a while to develop, but it showed up this year when needed for the Bills. I think they may prioritize elsewhere. I think they're going to try and retool this offense a bit to not have as many issues as they had to start the year. So Epinesa might be able to sneak out the door and be a starting edge rusher for a team that really has no edge rushers besides rotational players currently, just because they traded away their two. And even if the big edge rushers do hit the market, we know Montez Sweat, 4 years, $98 million. They didn't want to pay that. That's 24.5 per. That's what these other guys are getting, if not more, with Brian Burns and Josh Allen. And honestly, Jonathan Grenard and the rest are going to get close to it. So we're going to get cheaper here, see if we can spend the money on edge rusher next year if we need it, because we still have a lot of money next year. Blake Cashman, 2 years at $11 million to be our new second best linebacker. An upgrade on Cody Barton, a little bit younger, a little bit quicker, had a great year this year under a defensive-minded head coach. I think you get inspired. They're going to try and keep Jonathan Grenard. Like I said, all these 3 top edge rushers I really don't see hitting the market. So we're reaping the benefits of it with Cashman here. Tyler Biadasz coming over with Dan Quinn from the Dallas, 3 years, $24 million, 8 average. This team needs offensive line help, especially in the interior. You feel like you figured out your right guard. You have older tackles, only one that really performed last year. Your left guard was terrible. Center wasn't great. Let's get the center fixed. We'll work on the rest. Hopefully this year, and worst case, again, just like edge rusher, we fix it next year. But you can't attack everything at once and get good at everything at once. And finally, Noah Fant replacing replacing Logan Thomas. Thank you. I wanted to say Jordan Thomas for so long there.
Hey, man.
I know. Replacing him, 3 years, $27 million, 9 average. Just a younger tight end, a guy that can do exactly what Logan Thomas did last year, but can actually break tackles and make plays. They need it. They've taken a lot of kind of shots at the same type of tight end over the last few years. So to get a guy in here in this type of offense that can actually make plays and can run screens with and do a bunch of other stuff and has improved as a blocker is a good path, in my opinion. And again, another team that's going to be spending their money elsewhere, I think. So you keep him, you bring him into the building, you upgrade this offense, again, get another weapon for your quarterback of the future here. And the other tight ends probably won't work out, but there's not a really good tight end class this year. You're not getting Brock Bowers in the second round. So let's pay for one.
Yeah. Those are the big 5. Obviously, you'll add depth through the
Yeah.
rest of free agency and things like that. But those are the big five that we wanted to add as we approach this fix here. The last thing and the most fun thing is the mock draft. So we're gonna go back and forth with this one, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the first pick, um, which is the second overall pick, and that's Drake May. I know that there's some rumblings that some teams have Jaden Daniels ahead of Drake May. I think when all is said and done, after Drake May gets in the meeting rooms with all of these teams and things like that, everyone really sifts through all of the film and sees that Drake May is the one that throws with anticipation. Drake May is the one that's doing this at a younger age. I think that he is going to separate himself once again as QB2. I know there's some draw with Jaden Daniels in a Cliff Kingsbury-led offense because of the comparisons to Kyler Murray's play style, but I don't think Cliff Kingsbury needs that. I think Cliff Kingsbury wants an actual air raid quarterback, and I think Drake May can be that. I think he's the obvious pick here at 2 if Caleb Williams is gone at 1, or if they don't trade up to number 1. We didn't do that because we don't want to get too crazy, not knowing what's going to happen with the trade market. So we're sitting here at pick 2 and we get the franchise quarterback. It is funny to me, though, that Sam Howell and Drake May will share a quarterback room once again, except Drake May will be the starter, assumed starter, I guess.
For
Where'd
now.
we go? What's that?
For now, they share the room.
Yeah, that's true. Where we go with our second pick here, Randy?
Yeah, Darius Robinson, an edge rusher that's rising up boards, a guy that's performing well throughout the season, and they just need edge rusher help and depth. And I do think he'd be their starting edge rusher alongside Epinesa, simply because all the guys we brought back at edge rusher they started this year after the trades, but they're really just role players. They're key role players for this team, but I think Robinson has the chance, especially with the Dan Quinn defense style, to break out and really have a good career here. So you get cheap replacements for the edge rushers you got rid of, and a different style edge rushers as well from what you had. So I think that's smart. I think this fits more what Dan Quinn wants.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. Is the fit? It's actually funny. I think the 2 edge rushers that they traded away would fit Dan Quinn's defense pretty well, but they couldn't afford
Yeah.
them. Well, they could afford them, but they chose not to afford them because they're paying their defensive tackle so much. So get cheaper on the defensive line. That makes some sense. Here with the second pick from the Bears trade for Montez Sweat, pick 40, Graham Barton, the offensive guard from Duke. This is an important distinction. We're not drafting him to play tackle. We're drafting him to hopefully compete for that starting left guard slot. He is one of these guys that probably isn't long enough to play tackle. I think he might not be strong enough to play guard or center yet, but I think he can also get there. I think he's got the tools and he's got the movement skills. He's got the tenacity. He's one of my favorite offensive linemen in this class, but also he's one of those guys that he's kind of a tweener. And so he's going to have to bulk up a little bit to start at left guard. I think that that's what they would draft him to do, get him on a program, get him in there and really reinforce this interior because like Randy said earlier, you feel good about Sam Cosmi, I think, at your right guard spot. And then after that, it's kind of up in the air on what you're doing. We had Tyler Biotage, we had Graham Barton. We're feeling good.
Yeah, I think that sets you up for your interior set for the next at least 5 years. Obviously, Biotish might be gone in 3 years, and then maybe Barton takes over at center. Who cares? We brought back Shadiq Charles. They're going to compete for left guard, but like I said, he wasn't good last year. I think Barton wins the job, and he's getting picked here for his versatility. He helps us out. He can rotate it at tackle if we need as well. I think it's the smartest pick, and I think that's why a lot of teams are talking about him and Troy Fontenot at this range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right. And helping the offensive line again in the third round, pick 67, Dominic Cooney, the offensive tackle / offensive lineman from Kansas. Obviously, I think it's roughly 2,000 snaps at left tackle at college. I do think he is going to really I assume he's going to be trying to rotate in and take Andrew Wiley's job, who was the worst of the 2 tackles by far. Charles Leno was the oldest, but he played the best. So I think we're going to try and use that again this year and we'll see if Pooney can take over the right tackle spot. We might even be able to late trade cut Andrew Wiley to save some money there as well going into next year. But I think it's a smart pick to double down on the offensive line here. You got shot at 2 starters for this season, but a better shot at 2 starters for the next decade.
And I think your fail safe is that if Graham Barton doesn't work out, I think Pooney can kick inside. And
I think
so
he can, yeah.
And so then you're looking at, okay, maybe we didn't get 2 starters, but maybe we at least got 1 starter from these 2 picks. You're feeling pretty good about that. Pick 100 here in the 4th round. We sat back. We took Javon Baker, wide receiver from UCF. With this air raid type of attack, with Drake May's big arm, you want to get guys that can attack downfield. You've already got some of those guys, but you want to round out the depth a little bit. I think De'Ami Brown has shown some things as a deep ball type of player. I think you also want to continue adding because you could be in a situation here contract wise where you don't want to really pay your wide receiver 4. Javon Baker comes in, really good releases, really good ability to stretch the field and attack downfield. Kind of the perfect wide receiver for Drake May. If you're not able to get his buddy Tez Walker, which I don't know if he'll be available here at pick 100. So we went with Javon Baker.
He had a rough Senior Bowl, but not that rough.
Right. I think he's probably going to be a 3rd round pick, 2nd or 3rd round pick when all is said and done. Probably 3rd, but Baker's like a nice fit with that same play style, and we know that May likes that type of receiver. So we went there, kid out of UCF.
Yeah, we spent money on the offense. We attacked the line again, but let's get another weapon late. And like you said, it kind of resets the clock on De'Ami Brown, who was, another, UNC player, but only played really with Howell of the 2. So he might favor Howell a little bit more. But either way, we know Drake May can hit all levels of the field, has a good arm. So it's a good offense for Baker to kind of swing into and not have to step into a big role right away.
Yeah.
And then finish it off, pick 102 right after, really. Kalen King, another faller from the Senior Bowl, corner from Penn State. Just basically what we saw on tape that he needs to improve was more just emphasized at the Senior Bowl. I think people were pushing him up the board really just because of Joey Porter Jr., it felt like. Or just Penn State helmet scouting. The corners are good from there. And he is a good corner, but he's got some stuff to work on. Coming in here in the 4th round to a team that has spent draft capital and now money at the corner position, it really helps out. But your nickel corner currently in Quay Martin does rotate in safety as well. So getting another guy to be able to rotate along with Benjamin St. Juice, Snead, Forbes, and Martin. Now you have a really complete secondary, which has been probably the worst aspect of this defense for the last 5 years. So really making it a strength now while you're rebuilding the edge rushers.
And you look at the Cowboys and how they kind of built, they always had at least 2 really, really strong corners and guys that were capable of stepping in when those injuries happen, because they tend to happen every year for the Cowboys. So with that experience, I think Dan Quinn would put extra emphasis on having some depth in that room so that you don't lose a ton of quality when something like that happens. So yeah, that's our 4-round mock draft. Eventually we'll get to 7-rounders. We're not quite there yet, but
let's cut candidates in free agency. It's just reading off a list. We'll move up the draft.
Yes. So before we get out of here, we do want to read the new depth chart. Randy, I'll let you do that.
All right. Drake May is our new quarterback with Sam Howell as the backup for now. I do think there's a chance they trade Howell and get a veteran in there. Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, Chris Rodriguez, still the running backs. Brought back Alex Armah for your fullback. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, Javon Baker is your real wide receiver core. Solid young athletic core there. Charles Leno, Graham Barton, Tyler Biotish, Sam Cosmi, and Andrew Wiley / Dominic Pooney is your starting 6 offensive linemen. Noah Fant as your new tight end, AJ Epinesa and Darius Robinson as your new starting edge rushers, and bring back the rotational depth guys alongside De'Aaron Payne and Jonathan Allen, your stalwarts of this defense in the middle. Blake Cashman as your new linebacker to pair with Jermaine Davis to continue his growth, because it's, again, another slow burner, but he's so athletic. He's doing a lot better now. And Kaliki Hudson coming back to improve on what he did this last year. Benjamin St. Juste, L'Jarius Sneed, Emmanuel Forbes, Kellen King, Quan Martin as your secondary, with Derek Forrest, Cam Curl, and Jeremy Reeves as your three big safeties. Honestly, the defense is what you would want, minus the top edge rusher for Dan Quinn.
This is a playoff roster.
Yeah,
year one.
That's as long as the quarterback play is adequate and the line is adequate. This is a playoff
big
roster.
One. Yeah. That's the big one, and I do think we still have a question at right tackle.
I do too, but yeah, there's only so much money, and also the offensive line class for free agency minus center, honestly, is not great. And all the best players are going back. Some of the big names might retire. Like it's not great. So it's a deep offensive line class. Taking 2 shots at it makes sense, and then maybe spend next year if you have to. But
it's a good start.
Same with edge rusher. Maybe spend next year, but honestly, I'm pretty excited about a combination of AJ Epinesa and Darius Robinson with those D tackles.
Yeah, that's a pretty terrifying line. So that's our fix. That's how we decided to fix the Washington Commanders. If you're a Commanders fan, make sure you drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what direction we should have gone, didn't go, things like that.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think there's still like 18 million in cap space. It's just,
like
I said, a lot of the big fish aren't going to hit market, in my opinion. And we got one big fish, and that's more than any team really in the NFL is going to say.
Yep. Yeah, that's very true. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're doing these every week, so we skipped a couple weeks actually. We put it on the Patreon only. So
busy. Christian was sick and stuff happened.
Yeah, I was sick. Also, we dropped the Football Guys rookie draft guide, which is free. Go download that. I might put the link in the description here so you can check that out. Me, Kevin, and Jeff Bell, Kevin Coleman, who you see on this channel all the time, and Jeff Bell and Jay Stein all worked really hard on that. So go check that out. That's free. It's a whole rookie guide of offensive skill positions to get you ready for your dynasty rookie drafts ahead of time. Join the Patreon, patreon.com/DevyRoyale. We will talk to you next time. Thank you guys for watching.